What is it that Bitcoin fundamentally fixes?
Ooh, I think Bitcoin fundamentally fixes the actual measurement of value, right? So anything that you can put your productivity towards, which is your energy expended in your time, right? So when you do something for an hour, you spend your energy for it. That's like how productive you are, and whatever your output is. Um, I always use this example. So if we agree on a certain trade, I have a proposition, right? Uh, I do something for you, and my proposition is XYZ. You get this value, right? That's what I think you need. And you walk by my store and you see, like, oh, hey, this is the thing Bram offers is exactly what I need, right? And that is, of course, my task as the entrepreneur is to understand what you need, right? So we find each other. You walk in the store. The thing I offer is $100 units, and you are like, well, 100 is a bit too much. Can we do it for 80? And then I'll be like, no, we can do it for 90. And we shake hands. Like, we did that in total freedom, right? Like, I kind of understand what you're looking for. You think it's perhaps a bit too expensive. You say what it's worth to you, and I, counter, and we say okay. And so that seems like a free market economy, basically. But then I get to work, I create whatever my proposition was for you, and I deliver that, right? But then when you give me your reward, right, which is fiat money, dollars, yen, euros, etc., um a third party kind of comes into play. There's like a third party that determines what the value of that reward is. And so if the reward, the 90 money units, um, for me were good enough, right? Because I agreed, I even proposed it, the 90. I say, like, okay, these 90 money units, I think, represent, the value I'm giving to you, and you agreed. So that's how we measure. That's how our measurement is, or our agreement is basically measured, right? That's our exchange. It's an equal exchange. I give you something, you give me something in return, and what you give to me in return, I can spend on things that other people make with their productivity and, time and energy. So we make that deal. I give you what I created. You gave me the $90 units. But if I don't want to spend these 90 units immediately, and I want to save them, build capital, right? So pooled money is capital that I can spend on other things that cost energy. This is one thing I learned along the way from a non-Bitcoin podcast, actually. Someone said, if you look around you, everything that you see costs energy to create or maintain. I thought it was super interesting. So, right. So even like the wooden cabinet, like sun or energy from the sun went into the tree, and there was like rain, and the tree grew, and someone chopped the tree, right, and went to a factory, and they made beams, etc., etc. So there's like energy, and everything costs energy to create or maintain. And so that is basically what you do as a human. So if I have these 90 money units, and I don't want to spend them now or even tomorrow, maybe I have a plan and I want to spend them in a year because I want to move somewhere or build out my store or start a family or buy a home or whatever I want to do in the future. Conceptually, these 90 money units should keep their value, right? So even if I want to spend them in a year, they should be able to buy me the same amount of productivity. Let's stick with productivity, as they did when you paid me, right? But because there's this third party who is involved with this, they set the value of this money, and their whole system is designed around the fact that this money loses value by 2% each year. And their stick is, this incentivizes the spending of the money, right? And that's how we grow and all these things. So there's this kind of like economic ideology, philosophy that kind of rules our money system and our financial system, the Keynesian economics. But if you just go back to me having the 90 money units that lose value over time, and in reality it's more than 2%. My measurement for value kind of becomes jaded, right? It becomes crooked. Like whatever you could buy from me for 90 is not what I can buy in a year for 90. And usually it goes really slow and slow and slow, right? But over time, over a long enough time frame, eventually, this money loses its value. So what does that bring me? It brings me more anxiety towards the future. So everyone has general anxiety towards the future. Like I can die tomorrow. Like we don't really know when we die, right? So there's just this organic kind of anxiety towards the future that hopefully gives you a certain motivation today to make the most out of today, right? That's the point. And so when I decide what I want to do today, create value for Matt, right? That was my decision. I changed my time and energy. You gave me a reward. If that is what I did, what does it mean when the reward I got actually loses value over time and gives me more anxiety because I'm able to plan less for the future? But my whole goal is to plan more for the future because my goal is to create this capital, right? And so you can already kind of see how my need or my want or my desires are basically in a certain fight or in a certain tension with the tool, the technology I'm using to be able to provide that for myself. Does that make sense? So if I get more anxious towards the future, I discount the now also, right? Because I'm not really living in the now. I'm not really enjoying it because my anxiety is going up and up and up towards the future. And that also impacts all the decisions I want or could or maybe should make in the future or today because my future is so uncertain. And so when I say like the measurement for value is, why that was so eye-opening to me is that with fiat money, there's one point of the measurement of value is that when we shake hands and agree. And only after that, my tool that I can use to measure and exchange value with other people already measures less, basically. So it's like a yardstick or 1 meter becomes like 98 centimeters or 97. And so you can imagine if you want to build a house with a ruler that changes constantly, you don't really create a stable structure, right? So what is Bitcoin then? And I think Bitcoin in essence is extremely simple, but it's really hard to understand why the simplicity is so profound. So what do you need for a ruler, right? Like how do you measure a meter, a kilowatt, a kilogram? Like how do you do that? You do that with something that doesn't change. It is this one thing and this one thing only. And so for measurement, well, there is discussions around the world, right? Some people use miles, some other people use kilometers, etc. They all have their origin, but the most commonly used, I think, in this example is the metric system, just like kilograms. I don't use stones. In England they use stones, right? So there's a certain like common language as to how we measure, voltage, length, weight, etc. But there's no measurement for value at all. Like, well, they are there, but they're not constant because they're losing value all the time. And so when you think about Bitcoin, where does this stability come from? How do you know that one Bitcoin basically is always one Bitcoin? Like a meter is always a meter and a kilogram is always a kilogram, is because its base structure is rooted in a set of rules in a computer protocol, which basically says I'm this and this and this and this and this. And like the whole computer network has a goal, which is not only to secure the information that is stored on the blockchain, but also to uphold the integrity of these rules, right? So the longer the rules are the rules, right, the longer they exist, which is a Lindy effect, right? The longer something exists, the bigger the probability that it'll stay alive. that makes it more trustworthy. And you'll love where I wonder what you think of this. So it's like the longer this exists, the more data is stored in this ledger, in this blockchain of Bitcoin, in this network. And the stronger the computer network around Bitcoin is, that makes it less prone to change, so more immutable, the more trustworthy Bitcoin becomes as a measurement of value, basically. Because when you hear Christine Lagarde talk, right, European central bank president, she says €1 is €1, but that's incorrect, because in 1999, €1 was a euro at the introduction. Today, that €1 is 37 cents. And so she says €1 is €1. Yeah, well, maybe on the bill, right? But not in the productivity or the energy that I can buy with it that it should represent. So over time, in only 25 years, it already lost over 70% or over 60% of its purchasing power. And so the whole goal of Bitcoin is I'm going to stay the same. That's what I mean with the I think that's the simple genius. It's I'm never going to change. It's very boring. The whole point is that it doesn't change. It just chugs along. It doesn't have to be fancy or whatever. The whole point is I'm going to stay the same. And more people are going to store value in this thing, this system. And the system is just going to chug along. It's going to add another block. Every 10 minutes, we get more proof that this thing is reliable and you can trust it. And over time, I think that is why more and more people will figure that out. Because when you look at fiat money, it's like the total opposite of fiat money, right? Who decides on the value of the euro? I only know Christine, right? Like I have no clue who she works with, right? And in America, the Federal Reserve has never been audited. Like there are all these institutions, people, they don't care logically about your individual prosperity as much as you do. So, but still, you are dependent on them, and they are part of the system you're not even part of, right? So, I mean, I'm in a euro area, but I have to pay attention to the dollar because that has effect on my euro, for example. Like all these things, and so Bitcoin is just a thing that no one controls, but there is a decentralized network of computers and people that actually maintain this and secure this and verify this. And the fun thing is, of course, you can verify it for yourself. So you can actually audit Bitcoin entirely by yourself with like one line of code, and that is it, right? It's like literally 15 characters, and you press enter, and then you can verify everything for yourself. And so that gives you so much continuity and also transparency that, for me, that kind of like emerges as a better way to measure this this value. And the crazy thing is, and I watched some stuff from you, of course, like where I take like the step to the more spiritual connection with Bitcoin is I don't know if you know Thomas Campbell, my big theory of everything. Do you know that? Oh, that's I think he's like a physicist. He has this whole thing about it, but he has a podcast, My Big Toe. I would recommend you listen to it. Listen to the first 3 episodes. It's about physics, quantum mechanics, consciousness, and all I could think about was Bitcoin. So he's talking about how, like, our experienced reality is basically a super low entropy version of the super high entropy, which is consciousness, or the everything, basically, right? So we are a manifested consciousness in the most dense form of consciousness, the lowest entropy. And he talks about high entropy, low entropy, and stuff like that. And all I could think about was Bitcoin. It's like, holy shit, in Bitcoin, we're taking abundant energy, chaos, right? There's never ending energy. It's high entropy, right? We take that and we condense it into a chain of data, which is probably the highest form of ordered information in the entire history of humanity. Does that make sense? So you take something from like super high entropy and you put it in like a super clear like data structure. It's like super low entropy. It's like super ordered and super clear, and anyone can see what this is. And so while he was talking about it, I was like, holy shit. Okay, so if I really believe why this is spiritual for me is like, if you can align with how the world works, right, with how the physical reality is manifested and created, if you create something in this physical reality that aligns with like the order of creation, or the way things are created in this reality, then you should pay attention, if that makes sense. So that's well, I really wonder what you think, but that's kind of how you can go from like, okay, it's like a monetary finance tool, to like, holy fuck, this is a super profound discovery, because it does align with all these bigger principles. And when you look at the adoption of Bitcoin, for example, it follows this power law, which you can find everywhere in nature, right? And so, well, we can talk about that, but it's just like there's these things that I came across when I was looking into Bitcoin. I was like, whoa, this is so much. It's so much bigger. It's so aligned with, yeah, like I said, the kind of like mechanics of creation almost.
It is. Almost feels like an organic technology. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed the show. If you did enjoy the show, don't forget to like and subscribe below. It really helps a growing channel like this out. And click up here. It'll take you to a collection of the best this podcast has to offer.